Ah, recording, and we're live. All right, Calvin, welcome to the podcast. Welcome back to Church with Bo, you bitches. This is my friend Calvin. Got an interview going on today. I got a guest finally. See, some people like me. So,
Hell
Calvin,
yeah. Hello.
what do you do and who are you?
Hello. My name is Calvin. I'm currently a member of the U.S. Army as an infantryman, and I'm currently stationed and I'm active duty. And I'm currently, I was deployed to Iraq in 2023 to 2024, and now I'm stationed in New York. That's me for now.
Thank you for your
Oh,
service.
also know about me. I was a history major at Sacramento State, and currently trying to get my writing career started once I finish my army career. So there's that too about me.
And
So hi. Well, thank you for having me.
no, of course, anytime. You said that you are an infantryman. Are you a private?
I am not a private. I'm a specialist. So that's an E4. That's still lower enlisted. I chose not to commission, despite going in with the degree. I felt like, especially as an infantryman, to get the full experience is to go down the ground level, see what we do, see how grunts work from the ground up, and then work. And then if I wanted to stay in, then I would commission. But currently, I'm a specialist in the U.S. military.
Wonderful. Okay. And you said, how long have you been in Space Force or were in Space Force?
So I actually was not part of Space Force. I wanted to do field work,
Hmm.
and part of that field work would be. But I do have friends who are in Space Force, and they work in intelligence and cybersecurity for the military, and I personally didn't think that Space Force was the right fit for me. It's actually very competitive to get into Space Force. They are very selective about their applicants.
No, I'm sorry for
Um,
confusion, but I thought that's what you said, and it was weird to me because I was like,
what? No games. No, 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 no. I never said I was in Space Force, man. Sorry
I
if
just
this can.
heard you have to be like a high level Air Forceman to even like get considered, is
Oh
what I.
yeah, yeah, you do. They recruit at the highest level. You need to get like one of the highest ASVAB scores to even get in, to even consider be getting in, and have some technical background to be part of it. And me, I went a history major. I never, for one, that never really interested me because again, that's more desk work,
Yeah.
um more desk work and less working. I guess I'm not trying to discredit them because they do work in the cutting edge of technology and have very high technical abilities that surpass lower level instrument, right? So I'm not trying to discredit them as an asset to the U.S. government, but
I
as
was
far as
saying.
I'm concerned, I enjoy the field work more. So I like being outdoors. I like shooting weapons and shoot, move, communicate. And doing the things that you see if you watch a movie about any type of military stuff, right? Usually you think you know the stuff that I do, right, as an infantryman. So
I just wanted to lay the groundwork. So you're in the army?
I'm in the army.
Okay, that makes sense. Cool. And as I was saying before we started rolling, I was looking up like what the Space Force even does because I thought that's what we were going to talk about. Not that it makes any difference ultimately. I don't care about the either branch. The point is I wanted to talk to somebody who's in the military to get their perspective on things. and idea in general. So
Yeah.
it's great regardless. And from what I saw anyway, the Space Force mostly just handles satellites. I don't know if it was just the videos I was watching, you're not supposed to talk about what you're not supposed to talk about. So maybe those people, one of them was a major, and the major was like, we are basically the reason that your internet works, that you can make video calls and while your video games work. And I was like, that sounds crazy. You're telling me my video game works because of Space Force running satellites?
Hey,
Sorry.
you're doing
Right.
good. You're coming back in the gym.
I feel like
Get
that's
back in the gym.
Starlink.
So, okay, so it's good that you mentioned that, just because I want to touch base on what you just said, and highlight it, right? Um,
Right.
so sometimes I feel like, as as an infantryman, right, for the U.S. Army, that what we do is outdated, right? Because honestly, the real the real war front we have of the U.S. Army, or just against the U.S. America, right?
Right.
Is space, in my opinion. It's space, technology, and basically having domination of communication assets, right? That's why we have a big policy on secret clearances, top secret clearances, and what kind of access and information you have, right? We're very, very there are clear like security measures and breaches of security if we get into what we talk about, right, in public. So for me, like like what I can say, it's uh definitely I can say it on your platform, but I don't have, again, I don't want to also say right now, I don't have like a top secret clearance to be so. But from what I'm hearing from, what I mean, so
Yeah, no, obviously people in service and in the field, just like, somebody in Silicon Valley might hear some things about what's going on with AI or technology. You'll hear things
yeah,
regardless.
but essentially Space Force, Air Force, and I would say Navy, as much as like the Marines and the Army, and definitely combat forces within the Marines and in the Army. We take great pride in what we do, because there are many great men and women that gave their lives to in combat situations, right? You see what you see on the battlefield, bullets, bombs, all that type of stuff, and stuff you see in movies, essentially, right? But honestly, the real battlefront right now is definitely cyber warfare. Definitely space, um, territory in space,
I
and
was gonna say,
competing assets.
physically in space, or more like cyber warfare in the sense of like our propaganda versus theirs or whatever.
Oh, I mean that just goes into the social politics of it, right? So that's the social politics of it, right? In my opinion. So the bigger the web you have for security assets, for all the technology you have in space, right?
Right.
All that other stuff, right? It gives you more access to spread your own version of propaganda, because there is a West versus East propaganda space. What we say about China and what we say about America, right? Definitely are more positive. Definitely more positive toward Western.
And what we allow and don't allow each other to see of each other, and
So, like for example, like when we talk about China. Sorry about that. I'm in the barracks. There was a party going on over here, and I kind of got mismanaged the time over here, but hopefully that
You're doing it all. They wish
okay.
they were in the interview and they can get a shot too later.
Yeah, they got a shot too later. But and so generally speaking, we talk very positive about Western society and what the great things we've done. You read up our schools and everything like that. People flocking all from all swaths of the world to kind of trying to come to get a piece of democracy and what we offer as a Western society. China, on the other hand, seems to me we paint them as like this closed off, definitely totalitarian government, right? China, China, Russia, North Korea, right? Iran, all like pretty much, most totalitarian those governments in like the Middle East, spread out Afghanistan,
Right.
we just got out of war with, right? We definitely have a lot more positive, negative things to say about them, right? But in a social context, you know what I mean? I'm not trying to get into it because I know we're talking about space and everything like that, but I realized that, I made the connection recently because you look at comments on like Instagram and all this other stuff, how, some definitely, I would say more right wing um, comments definitely have things like, yeah, we should make it legal to cut off, like if you steal, you cut off an arm, right? Or, what I mean? That type of stuff,
We
right?
have examples of that other places in the world, and
Yeah,
it's
we have examples of other places in the world, but those are generally not Western societies. You
true.
know what I mean?
True.
So, but but yet you go to their profile there. They have a Christian, you have a Christian cross. They got American flag, and something about Josiah, some like proverb, right?
Green flag.
On their thing, right? And they talk about all this kind of stuff. So, in my opinion, again, all this type of stuff, right? It's all on the internet, right? We do this through our phones, we do this through social media and how we interact, right? It's not really what we talk about on a day-to-day basis, in my opinion. But I'm not sure how most people conduct their social lives, right? But definitely, all that can take place because of the satellite space we own, right? We have NASA, we have SpaceX, right? Or now currently SpaceX, right? The more civilian run, by Elon Musk.
Civilian in
Yes,
quotes.
yeah, civilian, right? Run space program, right? Which highlights success, right? And to a certain extent, I'm not a big fan of Elon Musk. I'm not a big fan of what he's done to a certain extent.
You don't have to you don't have to appreciate the man to like what he made. He's
Yeah.
made good things. He's doing some right and some wrong.
So like I am definitely, there are some things that let's just say he has bad like optics and public relations right now. Like definitely the majority of people I feel are not on his side. Right.
Regardless of what he's doing,
Yeah.
everything I hear is people saying that he appears very autistic.
Yeah. So and again, like, I think Elon Musk, right, like what he's proposed and how he's doing things. I mean, if you took it, but the thing is, like, especially like in the military, right, leadership, right. Um, it's hard to being a leader, right? It really is. And if people are always going to criticize you every step of the way, people are always going to question your motives and know how you do things, right? So, and then I think as a person, Elon Musk understands that. Um, but things that he put forward as initiatives, right? Let's say Doge, for example, Department of Government of Efficiency. He definitely, I mean, people wanted that, right? That's why Trump was voted right in by, and people like to cast blame on Democrats not showing up. People like to cast blame on this is what people happens when, you know what I mean? Because the Israel-Palestine conflict, they definitely made Kamala slash Biden, Biden then Kamala, right? Ticket very unattractive, right? And but the majority the and but Donald Trump won by the popular in the electoral vote, right?
Do a note.
So
You think
he won by the majority popular electoral vote, and people wanted change in the government, and I think that change is necessary, right? And a reaction to of the decades of definitely very unpopular policies, like I'm not trying to say like the policies Democrats initiated weren't bad. They had definitely had good intentions, but they weren't really well executed, and they went in with the more research based like theory crafting on the theory crafting of when drafting a bill, right? They wanted to put something into practice to see what happened, and then of course the negative results you see got more press than the positive results. And let's say homelessness in California, right? High housing costs, right? Um, inflation, all that stuff, right? Got terrible headlines, and definitely,
McDonald's is at $20 a meal.
yeah. So it's not going to go into that, but yes, I would say that that what Elon has done, right, in terms of efficiency, right? There are things, if you look at the thing, there's some departments and there's some things being spent and wasted because as a government worker, right? Me as a government worker, right? Now I'm not like a ridiculous salary owner. You can look at me up online. I get paid E-Force pay, so you see how much I get paid, right? It's nothing what majority of the federal workers get paid, right? And even after me at the lowest level, right? Basically, of the total pool compared to what they make, right? I'm gonna make like a fraction what most government workers make, and which most government workers they get paid, 80, 90 to 120 to 150, depending on your position, right, in the government, right? They make a lot of money, all right, and they are also in the position to not get fired. So job security, when you talk about a federal job, a state job, or any type of government job, you automatically think stability, right? I'm not gonna get fired, right? Basically meaning that I'm not whatever I put out, right? I can put a minimum. I can just do it just enough to not get fired every single day, right? And that is what the mentality of most government workers are. And I have a lot of friends in government, and trust me, they all like to brag about how little they do each day to day. So it is true that there needs to be a change in that, right? Because right now, and I think and the thing is, when it comes to, and it's funny when we talk about this, right? We talk about what the United States is good at, right? We don't make anything. We don't build anything, right? Like where, the shirt I make, right? The computers that are built, right? The chips that come in, right? We don't make them in here, right? We have, cheap labor elsewhere, right? Exploit labor,
It's been
right?
out.
And which is it's no secret that we don't really make anything. It's factories and all those types of stuff, right? They're to the wayside, right? So we have the Rust Belt and all these other dilapidated cities, right? Where industry was prosperous, right?
Yeah.
But what we do own though is technology, patents, laws that control those patents, right? We have a huge we have banking, right? We control the money, right? The flow of money everywhere else, right?
True.
That all ties into, right, what we originally talked about in terms of like control of space, right? And Elon does see that, right? That's why if you look at Elon right when he's done, right, and you look at it from like a very broad, unbiased perspective, right? Because I know that when people hear Elon Musk, they want to key a Tesla or something like that, or set a Tesla on fire, right?
Happens.
He's just getting a solid base in that industry, right? So chips to cars to all this other stuff, right? That's all flowing to basically Elon Musk's territory of. Hey, you want to talk about aliens?
Huh?
You want to talk about aliens?
Is that what you're doing right now?
Yeah.
Jumping deep, brother?
Yeah, no.
Drinking on Wednesday?
Yeah, we're going to the field soon. All right. So basically, yeah, Elon Musk wants to have control of these spaces, right? Space is a really, really big one. Space is a huge one, right? Can you imagine, like, what I mean? If we went back and like, what I mean, the 1800s, right? And then you have to and then you realize that the whole Western territory, California, Oregon, Nevada, all that other stuff, right, was open, right? Hey, just come over here and you just got to get a certain amount of money and you can have it and you buy it dirt cheap, right? what are you gonna do, right? What would a person with a lot of money would do?
I
No,
think
I'm
if
gonna go. I'm gonna go to the Western Territory right now. I'm not gonna dig for coal. That's stupid. I have a lot of money already. I'm just gonna buy land, right? Buy land, develop it,
think
and see
that
what
makes
happens.
sense, but it could also have been more of him seeing it as I feel like if we don't do this and start getting satellites and shit up there, other countries are going to beat us to it, and then we won't just be like the second or third to have a massive fleet or network of satellites, but we might be the last and we might, be behind at that point when, even if they do shoot them down or something, we can at least start it now and basically learn. He's an
Well, yeah.
accelerationist.
Yes. It's all started with what the space race of the 1960s, right?
Right.
Oh!
The space race of the 1960s, right? We all Soviet versus U.S. right? Space interest.
And
That's
his
why it's a huge thing. That's why it's a huge That's why it's such a huge controversy. That's why it's such a huge controversy of whether the moon landing was real or not, right? Like I'm
Right.
not. So I'm just gonna let you say let you know right now up front that I am not a big huge conspiracy theorist. I'm very I'm very very academically based. I don't participate in definitely outlandish theories, right?
Right.
I'm which don't get me wrong, I don't discredit them. If you think that there's a theory out there that you want to prove is real and there's definitely a conspiracy to hide it, right? Then definitely I commend you for dedicating your life to doing that. And there's a lot of criticism, like we're just, spectators, right? Academia is definitely a spectator sport. Um, with no drive for innovation from time to time. To a certain, I got a little fed up with it. Academia at one point too, but I still think that yeah, I'm not a big conspiracy theory guy. I'm just want to put that out there just for your viewers to know. But but um, there when the U.S. right and the Soviets were in that space race, right? There's it gave basis for the moon landing to be fake, right? Is the moon landing real, right? Well, the moon landing was fake because it's on a set and they wanted to
Like the hand
yeah,
movement.
yeah, you like that?
Because
Yeah,
the footage could be
it's fake because like what I mean, we want to get that we want to claim that right now to prove that we have superior space technology, right? We made it to the moon first. We're claiming terror. That's just the one thing, the first major thing. Before prior to that was, when the Soviets landed Sputnik into the space well, right? That was a huge win for the Soviets. So
hold on. Sputnik. Remember Sputnik. It's about to end because I don't have Pro, but we're gonna
oh,
have to start the call again so I can. Okay, we're back.
okay, we're back. So Sputnik, right?
Right.
The space race,
Calling somebody earlier.
our need to colonize space and have it be it's this famous Star Trek line says space, the final frontier, right? So when we think about U.S. control of territory of space, we have around 11,000 to 12,000 satellites in space. Pretty much most of our space ventures, at least the ones we hear about, we are the only one that has aspirations to go to the moon, colonize the moon, try, go to Mars, missions to Mars.
Exactly.
Those are public data that we can have access to. But you really don't hear about anything about China and their different space. Obviously, China,
That
we
might
like to
be what they want.
China and Russia, right? They are a peg below us economically. So obviously, there's a great debate on whether NASA should even be a thing, right? Why would we have why should we fund something such as space when we can't even fund, basic healthcare, education for all, healthy meals for kids, or cheaper food in general, right?
Right. And that's really where 99% of people's heads are at every day. I was watching these videos that were saying it was also I think it was Eric Weinstein, this the professor from I forget if it's Stanford or Harvard, but he was saying that he's afraid that we're definitely in a space war already and that we could very clearly or very much without anybody knowing be in a situation where China or Russia or whoever is taking out some of our satellites. We've been taking out their satellites, and that could have been going on. But in order to not, tell any of the countries that there's a war in space going on, it's easier to just, delete any trace of that and call anybody who talks about it like it's real a kook.
So, in my opinion, to that point, I'd say follow the money. We give out gross bonuses for any type of space, any type of cybersecurity, any type of like. We as an infantry are out obsolete to a certain extent, right?
Right. And
I'm
also,
not saying that we don't need ground forces. I'm not saying that we don't need all that type of stuff. Of course, we need all that stuff. But what
soon.
we really need, right, is smart, capable individuals that are very well versed in technology, right? That's why we pay. When for example, if I were to reclass to, let's say, cyber communications, right, cyber technology, any type of like cyber related job, or we would call MOS, right? Military occupation or something like that. MOS, right? Specialty. That's what it is. I would get like $60,000 set for 60 years, right? And it would just go straight to the bank, right? And that's like universal, right? We want to train you. We want to like, it's nice, right? And there's like ongoing debate too, like whether like the military has gone soft, right? And I just think that now like our needs are different, right? We don't need like if you look at the whole entire global war on terror. I mean, we lost a fraction. I think what we lost sort of like what like something like 5,000, 7,000 American troops, right? Compared to Vietnam was like 58,000, 58 over the course of 10 years. Global war on terror like spanned 20 years, right? And yeah, that's just you know because for one, we and soldiers are investments, right? The U.S. Army places a lot of investments, places a lot of training and money into having us be well trained. That costs a lot of money to feed us, to clothe us, to all and to keep our living spaces, right? But why do that when, again, our primary priority is space? It is just cyber warfare, right? There is, I believe, a war on that. I think that's definitely what the military, at least top officials in the military and the Pentagon, prioritize overall, in my
I mean,
opinion.
I think I've thought about the fact or the idea long, long ago. Probably when I even first heard of GPS, I was like, if we can make GPS, why can't we basically just send internet from some sort of GPS to like all over the earth? Is it too like spotty? Would we need too many satellites? Like basically, I was thinking, why isn't there a Starlink way before? And the older I get, the more I think the reason we had to establish all those giant, thick, like iron covered wires under the oceans is because people were afraid, like, well, if we have all of our, like, internet infrastructure in the sky in some capacity, then they could easily be taken out. Whereas if it's like underwater, not only is it harder to reach, but it could be monitored a lot easier and gotten to. I don't know.
Of course, and it's a lot cheaper to send submarines down there than it is to send a satellite into space, right?
Or
Send,
anything
send,
back on something up in space.
America's Navy, America's Air Force, right? We're the global powers, right?
Exactly.
And we control the maritime and aerospace frontiers by a large margin. That's why our military is considered the best in the world because of our domination on the front, right? We give a
Right.
lot of crap to seamen or people in the Navy. Give a lot of crap to
people in the Air Force, right? Chair Force, that type of stuff. Navy is full of homosexuals and all that kind of stuff. And that's what all just
I heard there's truth to that. The
well, I mean, there's of
people
course there's truth, and there's somewhat of a truth to it, but but the
love our
fact of the
Navy
matter is, we're
servicemen.
more like the people that are on an aircraft carrier are more likely to get attacked than people who are on a base. You know what I mean? Maybe not a forward operating base like a FOB,
Yeah.
like we did when you were in but we have really not that many FOBs compared to what we had at the peak of the global war on terror. But I mean, but yeah, I mean, we compete for all these spaces, and there's definitely money flowing into that. That's a priority for the military. And optics wise, yeah, you don't look cool sitting on a desk monitoring, you know, satellite traffic and all that stuff, type of stuff. That you just can't make a cool movie about that, right?
Right. Also, what's something I read before I forget I wanted to get into before we go on to aliens real quick. How much longer, like realistically, even just speculating, do you think that we're even going to have very many like living people doing any sort of missions or operations except for maybe having like one commanding officer go out with like 20 droids or 50 droids, whatever, because the droids are coming. We have the droid dogs and the full people ones are coming very soon. So
Of course.
there's no reason to send, like, we've seen footage. There's live fucking GoPro footage of people getting attacked by drones in Ukraine. Why we can't keep subjecting people to this the minute we don't have to, right? So what's that looking like to you?
Oh, okay. So military technology, right? You know, Ukraine, Russia is just free data for us, right? A very, very good, I would say, experiment. I mean, I hate to say those type of words. You know what I mean? Ukrainian men, Ukrainian citizens dying, Russian citizens dying, right?
I forget what senator or whatever it was. There was a guy, I think, in Congress. It was a congressman who said, like, the Ukraine war is like one of our greatest something something because not a single American life has been lost. We have 0 feet on the ground, which everyone knows is bullshit anyway. Like, yeah, we don't have any official troops out there, but even that could be debated. And there's like over 5,000 Americans fighting in Ukraine right now.
So yeah, so there are probably American soldiers in the French Foreign Legion. I know there's a volunteer force out there, but officially the U.S. government is not participating in sending
Right.
troops on the ground. On that, those are just
I didn't even know
um,
French Foreign Legion, honestly. I was talking about like my friend was a Marine, and after he became like an operator and contractor, and he told me that like as a contractor, you could go to Ukraine, like from when it first started, pretty much there was like people calling for jobs out there, giving jobs out there, calling for people. And
for
yeah,
sure.
it could be an operator from anywhere technically, but he's like, well, I'm from America, like I can go
Yeah.
out there if I want.
Yeah, they definitely private military contractors give gross amounts of money. I mean, that's
That
definitely an avenue for me post military career is to because I was deployed in Iraq, right?
right.
And
Same with my friend.
was in close contact with private military contractors. I can easily put in a job application and just be like, okay,
I'm not
well,
sure if you know him, is Connor Patterson. Connor Patterson said he would upload like on Instagram when he was in Iraq. He was in Mosul, Iraq,
yeah,
and
yeah.
it would be him like fucking running across someplace. It was like the middle of the desert, and he's running across to like this building, and he's like filming him and like 5 dudes all running, and like there's gunshots going off, there's like mortars falling behind him, and they like all run into this building, and you just hear like an explosion outside. So I don't know. It seemed like it was going pretty crazy. And he said that was before he was even like on private contractor work.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm not gonna get into and actually maybe we could segue into what we're talking about in terms of technology, like I mean, private versus military technology. I mean,
No, I really want to know how long you think we're going to need living people in the battle.
there'll always be a need for living people. I mean,
No, there won't. Not as when we have the droids and the robot dogs and the drones.
that's not going to come till we're like old men, man.
No, that we have the drones already, and the Boston Dynamics dogs could easily be implemented. The Chinese,
Yeah, we have dogs right now, but can a robot determine who's a citizen, who's not who is?
I think within 5 years, they will basically be able to determine threats and non-threat targets. Yes.
Okay, in my personal opinion, again, too much of a debate on this, but from what I've seen, the military is a bureaucratic institution, and things like that are very, very slow, right?
Right.
Again,
So even if it's possible, they won't implement it.
yeah, and I think that for one, like, again, follow the money, right? We invested like I don't know if you like just to update you on things that are going on in the military in terms of technology, right? We just had like this whole new overhaul on advanced soldiers, right? We have cell phones that can, you know what I mean? We have, all these new military toys, right? New rifles, new helmets, new kits, new gear, right? That will probably be in use for 20 years before gets replaced, right? And that's just how the military does things, right? They
Even
just tend to,
even if
they
we
did,
progress way past it, like ridiculously past it,
wait, what was that?
like even if we, because you're saying that and that makes sense in like a conventional way that it could last that long, but what if not just us, but the Chinese and the Russians all develop like way insane heads up displays for like your headgear and the
We do
one,
have that now.
yeah,
We
but
have that.
I'm just saying if the technology were to get leaps and bounds bigger, would it not be implemented faster?
Oh, and I don't know, man.
Just
I don't
because,
know. We've had, like, for example, our whole like when I joined the army, right?
right.
We've been when I first got in, right? We're using equipment that has been used since like 2001. You know what I mean? And I joined like what 2022. You know what I
Everything.
mean?
I mean,
So
like all of your equipment or just
yeah,
like,
right. Our rifle systems, our radios,
yeah, I thought you meant like,
our kits.
right.
Our kits, everything, right? We just literally had a huge overhaul. Like it was a big step for them to, you know, implement new rifle systems, new machine gun systems, new tech oriented, new radios, new tech stuff, right? You know, in the field, right? So it's
So
definitely
you're saying that if DARPA were to make some amazing new piece of tech and we see it like announced or whatever, Boston Dynamics makes a video about their crazy new advancement, it could be up to 5+ years before it's implemented and in like soldiers' hands.
yeah, definitely.
Wow.
You know that helium was made when the hydrogen when the Hindenburg was destroyed, but it was a secret technology at the time, right? And we were still floating blimps with filled with hydrogen, right? And what happened with the Hindenburg disaster, right? It's just how the military operates. You know what I mean? It's it's a very slow. There's contracts, there's manufacturing. Unless again, the only unless there's you stuff. You know what I mean? Like you light a fire under the whole institution itself by. If you saw China having droids and all that other stuff, then yeah, the military that would then have to reevaluate and re-up because remaining lethal, rem- remaining lethal while still
Thumb.
having without the risk of losing actual manpower is definitely a priority.
Move your thumb. Your
Huh?
thumb is on the screen. Thank you.
What?
Your thumb was covering the camera.
Oh, my bad, my bad.
You're all good.
Okay, but yeah, I would say it'd be a while in my honest opinion.
No, I didn't. That's that. I really wanted to know because that's definitely all news to me. I had no idea how that works, and I
Yeah.
was like, I'm thinking like while you're explaining this, like I see all these crazy new military advancement. DARPA makes this, or what's their name? Skunk Works makes this, and I'm just like, all right, well, if we see these every year, I'm like, oh, that means it's already in the military to some capacity.
I
But with
mean, I'm sure it isn't in its own capacity, but we got to keep in mind the military has a budget, right? Yes, we spend, most of our budget as a nation goes toward defense, right? But that goes toward majority of that. I mean, how much that really, you look at that, I can't give you the exact defense budget, right? But I will say right now that most of it goes to maintaining, most of it goes to recruiting, most of it goes to retention, most of it goes to, and then again, we're rolling out new technology, right? Most of it goes to all these other things. Those are, VA, pensions, all of that stuff, right?
And there's all those black budgets that we can't account for.
Yeah. But again, the most that's when we talk about like rolling out new technology, that's all accounted for though. There's no slush money involved, right? And that type of stuff, right?
Right, they
But
don't need to watch it. That's
so
to get more
yeah,
than
there's no slush money involved when it comes to like buying. It's very transparent, to a certain extent, transparent transactions when it comes to, hey, the military is going with this. You know what I mean? Like, let's say, like for example, we're going with a Sig Spear, right? Sig Spear or a Sig, Sig M17 pistol, right? The military will make. We want to buy this many units. We want to buy this time, and they go through rigorous, quality assurance, right? Process before they get into the hands of actual ground units, right? Again, that process takes a long time, right? So yeah, I mean, do I see it in my life, the droids in my lifetime? Yeah, I will, but I think that'll be an old man at that time. So, and I'll be like, that's crazy. You know what I mean?
I
So,
feel like with the rate that they're advancing, at least by what it looks like, I feel like they'll have the possibility to do it within 10, 15 years and
yeah.
be training them for target recognition and shit at that point. And then with
Well,
20, 25 years, you can
yeah. I mean, we have like self-driving vehicles. We have all this other stuff,
yeah,
right? And you see, like right now, like self-driving vehicles aren't perfect, right? There are people
go
who get
on a helicopter.
stuck. They get stuck. They go wrong. There's some glitches. There's, I mean, yeah, they're like maybe 1 in 10 chance that happening to you. Something going wrong in a self-driving vehicle, right? But
Numbers
people
getting pulled down lower.
and people are like repellent to that type of technology too. And
No, they hate.
people don't like to see their jobs or their potential division of labor, right, being taken by a robot, right? AI.
Exactly. I feel like they see like not just their replacements, but they see like how an entire society can function without the need for humans. So you not wanting to do something or choosing to do something else will not affect anything ultimately if like the greater powers who
Yeah,
can't.
there's definitely a lot of action, right, going on. There's definitely a lot of, it's funny. Um, so I would say I'm a huge romantic, right? And romantic in the sense of 19th century romantic, that
1800s
whole, art movement, right? Or social movement. And a part of that movement was hugely based on anti-industrial sentiment, right? Nature versus industry, right? Because this is around the time when the industrial revolution was taking place, right? We have cities being made or being brought up, right, on industry with huge cloud smokes, factories, right? You know what I mean? People working 12-hour, 18-hour shifts, right? And ridiculous labor hours, kids working in labor hours, right? And all that type of stuff,
yeah.
right?
So
And that type of stuff, right? And there's definitely something inhumane about that, right? And it was inhumane at that time, right?
soul crushing to an extent for sure.
So, and I think that's what we're going to is a reaction against that, I mean, inhumanity, right? This, again, like are, AI and I always harp on this fact. 'Cause I want to be. I said it earlier in the podcast. I want to be a writer, right? And I feel like that there's of course AI can technically do my job, right? But I think as long as you do something that humans can resonate with,
Yeah,
and
they're not going to be able to replicate
they're not
this.
be able, yeah, they're not gonna be able to replicate that.
I,
To
I,
certain, I mean, that'd be amazing if they did, and
I
honestly,
make
but
music too, and it's the same thing. I can make songs with AI that sing the song, they make the beat, everything. But at the end of the day, people still want to hear an actual person and
yeah,
their feeling and opinion.
definitely,
And
definitely,
AI
definitely.
cannot replicate, soul ultimately. That's definitely a thing. That's why Elon Musk believes we have to merge with the AI because it'll either, be that the AI can't progress or that we need more from the AIs, from technologies.
Yeah. Yeah. I was like, I'm gonna move to my room real quick because my fucking battery's gonna die soon. So I was like, oh man,
You're all
should have
good.
charged this big baby. But
So my friend Biggie wanted me to ask you, he is not entirely convinced that we ever landed on the moon, and he wants to know what convinced you as being, in the position you're in and having gone to college, that space is real and that people can actually travel outside of the atmosphere.
well, I'm not an astrophysicist, but I will say to this: there are many, many independent agencies, independent. So let me have this.
Right now,
Okay.
buffering up for a second. All right.
Am I good?
Yeah, it's better.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, the audio is clear. That's all that matters.
It's probably better. Let's see. Okay. Can you hear me?
Yep, that's good.
I went to my room and connected my Wi-Fi. Okay, so there are many independent, groups like the ones that are in the Arctic, ones that are all over, the sea, and government agent and just agencies in general, right? Just many agencies in general. So it's very, very hard, and there's a lot of data and a lot of studies and a lot of proof that the Earth can be penetrated, and the Earth atmosphere can be penetrated, and there's satellites in the air, right? We currently have satellites in the air. There are currently people who spend time in space, right? To have that be a huge conspiracy factor of they just shoot some guy in space and then all of a sudden, they're there. I just don't think this is a conspiracy theory that supports that.
I mean, I personally don't believe it either. That my Biggie said that he believes that, and he knows that some of his friends also believe the same thing. And being raised in and around so much of what you learn in basic education that we learned at least was like, all right, well, a lot of this could be true, couldn't be true, might be false, like how you learn that history is written from the perspective of the winner. And you're like, all right, well, which of this actually happened and what do we actually need to like figure more out about and look from like whatever country was defeated in these wars perspective on.
As far as the space landing,
Yeah,
right? In terms of the actual first mission to space with Buzz,
right.
uh, with Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin. I honestly am not and I really can't say that whether that was real or not. I can't say it was real. And I
Right.
can't say it was fake. Right? Why? Because I wasn't born. and I obviously there's a lot of there's a lot in that time period that can be the JFK assassination was around that time period, right? There's a lot of things that could easily be covered up during that time period, right? I'm not saying that those conspiracies don't exist. I'm not saying those conspiracies don't deserve to have a light shine on them. But I can't speak toward it because I don't have the access to the data. But as far as right now, because obviously there's a lot of political pressure to get a man on the moon because there's a space race between Soviets. We have had to begin this conversation. Sputnik launched this. Russia launched Sputnik into space, the first satellite, and we had to one up them with as Americans most do. We like to think that we're we want to show them that we have the biggest dick in the room, and we wanted to have a first man on the moon, and we had it with the space landing. But there are lots of I believe there's a lot of evidence that supports that was real. Such as I've been getting into a lot of, that was a lot off topic, but I've been getting into a lot of like watches lately, and Omega made the Speedmaster, which is like the moon, we would call the Moon Watch, and which went to the moon, right? And there's also moon rocks too. There's also like stuff that you can get from the moon that are not found on Earth, right? But yeah, there's a lot of evidence to support the moon landing was real. So
we could get moon rocks with a probe too, you know. I'm a firm believer that we can get into space. I don't know why. To me, it just makes sense from everything I've learned in science and how rockets work. I definitely believe you can get into space, and I don't think people would die in space, but I'm also a firm believer that at least some of that moon landing footage was faked. The American moon landing footage was definitely very sketchy. And I have plenty of like uncles in Romania who used to always say, like, you believe that? You really believe that? I don't know. I think we could get to the moon, but just all the circumstances, like you said, with the war and everything going on, makes it seem very easily falsifiable.
of course, any good conspiracy, or if you're making any conspiracy, if I was the one in charge of faking the moon landing, I would obviously make it so any type of holes that I thought at the time were not uncovered to be covered, right?
Right.
But I think those like things like the angles and all that stuff of the moon landing and all that stuff. I saw a clip or a YouTube thing on it, but that's again I can't test that. Because obviously this is not this is not a topic that we are not the only ones talking about whether the moon landing is fake or not. This has been
Yeah.
decades old discussion, right? Whether the moon landing was real or not, right? But
Like,
the fact of the matter is currently today that we can to address your friend Biggie's concerns, right? It is possible to send people into space, right? We are currently trying to find ways of getting life in colonies and us, what I mean, to gather natural resources that are not attainable, right, in Earth and bring them down here, right? I'm not an expert on minerals it's found in space. I'm an expert on astronomy, but there's definitely the cost of getting that right is very, very expensive, right? So why would we try and find a rock that we can find here at literally a quarter of the cost, right? But NASA and actually, SpaceX has been a recently new contender in the space aeronautics technology front, but NASA has always been a pioneer in terms of like developing new technology, right?
and there
Like-
we
I like
then we
what
currently use
Neil
NASA's patents to drive new technology. So
I like what Neil deGrasse Tyson said. He said that with everything that you would have had to do and fake to fake the moon landing, it would actually be cheaper to just try and send some people who were willing to die out there. It was just a bonus that we got them back home alive and everything is
oh, of course, you know those Challenger disaster. I mean, we do send people to space, and it's no like we're not sending dogs up there to fucking die, right? And then having people here fake like, oh yeah, like
But on to something I can't let you leave without because we only have 4 more minutes before we got to do another call and break. But last week on the podcast, I did a nice little, not deep dive, but a dive into mass sightings across the world I tried to find. But we did one that was the Phoenix Lights, which is a popular, I don't know if it's conspiracy even, because it was apparently over like 60,000 people one night in Phoenix. I forget if it was 2016 or like 2013, but fairly recently, over 60,000 people witnessed some like strange lights and what they think might have appeared to be some sort of like alien colony or something. It was like a bunch of lights up in the sky that were all in like crazy formations. They weren't just like randomly sporadic or like, you know, line or anything. They were making like V shapes and shit and they were flying over. A lot of people saw it. Kurt Russell saw it, made a video about it. Like there was like doctors and scientists who saw it. That these are I was saying then too, these mass sighting events are always like super interesting to me because it's like, yeah, one or two, 100 people in like, you know, a lot of people are like, oh, all these military things are a setup. Of course, the commanders and all these people in the military could be set up and paid by the military to do it. But this in Phoenix, Kurt Russell had no reason to make himself look like an ass and just lie about aliens. And 60,000 other people had no reason to just start saying that, you know?
So I went to the Royal Ontario Museum in Toronto, right? I had an interesting discussion with a gentleman there. He was our tour guide, and we were discussing the possibility of life in space, right? And there's definitely are signs of life in space, right? We pulled rocks and fragments of existence of microbial life, right? Which, if you believe in the theory of evolution, um, will eventually, over the span of thousands and thousands of years, which the universe is thousands of years old, I mean millions of years old, right? Many years old, right? Um, there is definitely a potential that there's only life out there, sentient human life out there. Um, and the question I think that postulates that raises to me is is human are humans, right,
Right.
willing to accept that there's a sentient life on Earth, a sentient life outside Earth? And the answer is no, they are not ready for that news. If that news is real, right? If I don't work I don't have access to those super highly classified material. I'm sure that many people do believe that, but many people would, there's religious fanatics out there. There are people who, for last, many decades, say that, the the judgment's coming, and the world's about to end, and heaven and those who will be judged, right, will be sent to heaven and or hell, right? And you gotta do this. You gotta believe right now, right? I'm not gonna get into religious fanatics right now, but again, I don't think the world is ready for, and I don't think they will ever be ready